So hello and welcome to F&B Radio down here in London in partnership with Rafiki Waymer. We are here for a very special event, the opening of a community studio, and I'm your host Ben Mellor for today, and with me in the studio we have two very special guests. So would you like to sort of introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Councillor Bashir Ibrahim, representing the London Borough of Islington.
And my name is Councillor Ibrahim Ali. I'm a councillor for the London Borough of Haringey.
Lovely. And so obviously we're here today because we've got a new community studio, as you can see. We're sat in it right now. And so sort of just moving over to you guys, first impressions, what do you think?
So I'm very impressed with the space that the groups have pulled together. It's, I think given the community a chance to come together, to have their voices heard, and it's something that I think I will always celebrate, I will always support, and I'm really proud and privileged to have cut the ribbon and be in this studio with you today.
Lovely.
No, I completely agree. I think it's amazing when you've got a facility like this that people can actually walk off the street, essentially, take part in. I think it's a great opportunity for people to actually learn something new. A lot of times we think about community assets, we think about the sort of daily sort of bread and butter stuff, sports, which is great, obviously, sports kind of things, but sometimes we don't think about other people's interests, and I think sort of digital media or this kind of film production or photography, it's amazing, and I think it's jobs in the future as well, so someone's got an interest in it. There's a great sort of head start, you can say as a young child or a teenager, I did this when I was younger, and I had a love, a passion for it, and I took it on seriously as an adult, so I think it's amazing.
I mean, sort of in the presentation before we came into the studio, I mean, we had some of the children in the back sort of already interested in sort of hosting little podcasts. So it is very good to see the community sort of coming together there. And sort of, Bashir, one of the things that you mentioned sort of in your speech at the presentation is sort of amplifying those underrepresented voices. And I was just wondering if that's sort of something you'd like to repeat for us live on air now, because it was a very good speech, I thought.
Yeah, well, thank you. And so I think just for the benefit of those listening, and it was reflected on why I got into politics, and I felt as a young black working class Muslim, and my voice and the voice of those communities and those intersectional identities that I identify with weren't being represented, and I felt like it's a really disconcerting feeling to feel like you're voiceless, and because I feel like everyone has a voice. As I said, everyone has a voice, everyone has a story. But there are factors in life and where you will be either deliberately ignored or willfully not heard. And so I thought it was really important. And this is a manifestation of having your voice heard. It's not just about going into politics. It's just making sure that if you've got strong views about something and you want to create positive changes, get your voice out there, whether you're coming to a community studio, whether you're running and to be a local councillor, whether you're running to be a governor, whatever it is, make sure your voice is heard, because if you don't do politics, politics will do you. So it's so important to get involved.
I mean, that was sort of the main takeaway from my speech as well, that sort of bit at the end, politics will do to you if you don't get involved. Yeah. I mean, for context, my undergraduate degree was in politics, so sort of give you a bit of background there. But I mean, the community studios should be a fantastic opportunity for, we saw sort of the room packed there, all of those different groups, all of those different voices to come together and sort of speak in a podcast format, be it on a live radio format. And so I just wonder, sort of, any predictions? What do you think sort of the first show that's going to go out is? Sort of getting a bit sort of topical on that, based on the interest in the room.
Depends on who comes to the door.
Very true, very true.
If there's sport, it could be on sport. It could be something that's topical, something that's quite interesting to the local area. It could be the neighbourhood itself, what they like about Finsbury Park, what they don't like about it, what they want to see changed. It could be anything, but I think that's the good thing. It's not prescriptive. It's not a case of we're saying to people, or the community saying to people, you can only do a certain number of things, even for these sort of things. And I think also the great aspect of feeling like is that emphasis on mental health, and I think it's really good. It's a form of talking therapy, really. People actually be able to say what they feel, what's on their chest, get it out there, and also to talk things through. One of the things that I find quite helpful is when I have a problem or an issue, it's to talk it through with somebody else, and then that's the opportunity for you to actually think through what your position is on something. And I think it's actually great, especially for young people, to have the opportunity. We don't really give them those chances, I think, to actually say what's important to them, what's on their mind. And I think that's a great thing about digital media. It's so accessible. In fact, you've got great facilities that people can just literally drop in and have the opportunity to still take part. It's very, very special, very unique.
Anything else you'd like to add, Bashir, onto that? Or?
Yeah, no, and I think, post-pandemic, one of the things that I'm hearing from the community is, I think, this increase in ill mental health, and especially, and I think the centre, you probably heard about some of the great work that they do. So I wouldn't be surprised if people were here, as Ibrahim said, to kind of therapeutically talk about some of the issues that they're finding. We're in the midst of we've come out of a public health crisis, and we've entered an economic crisis, and this can be really disconcerting just for anyone, but more so if you're young, and this is all, much of what you've seen over the past few years. So I wouldn't be surprised if the topic isn't fun and fairies. It will be something quite heavy as they kind of come to terms with their surroundings and society, and as we're experiencing some of these global shocks.
And obviously one of the sort of things mentioned in the presentation was sort of this focus on mental health. Obviously that's probably an issue that you guys as councillors deal with on a sort of a regular basis. And so I was just wondering, sort of on your level, sort of moving beyond the studio, what sort of initiatives locally are we seeing around mental health? Is there anything in particular that you're championing at the moment? Anything new you'd like to announce right here? I mean, no pressure on that one, but...
So I've got something to say. So I'm incredibly proud that at Islington we have launched and successfully launched and have won awards and been nominated for awards for something called the Young Black Men and Mental Health Project. So we've had funding from NHS England, but it's about how do we get young black men who, unfortunately, some of their outcomes and experiences are quite stark in statistics, and how do we get them involved in this mental health conversation rather than doing mental health to them? It's making sure that they're involved in that. So things, innovative things. We've trained up a number of barbers and barber shops in Islington to be kind of some of those mental health first aiders, and have those and train them up and skill them up to do that effective signposting, because that's where most people, a number of young black men will go, and not just to cut their hair, but to kind of chew the fat, kind of have those conversations. And so if that's where they are, rather than kind of bringing them to a talking therapy group, in a rundown community centre, let's go to where the community is. And that's why I'm really proud that Islington have the first, I think, borough in the UK have managed to pilot this programme, and we're seeing some great results so far, and although the pilot is still ongoing.
I also suppose it links strongly to the community studio here, because obviously people can come in and start making podcasts or indeed live shows talking about mental health, providing signposting that way, getting people, young men especially, sort of open and talking about their feelings and the things that sort of affect them mentally. And I think that is sort of a big golden opportunity with this studio. And I think it's, hopefully sort of a statement that you guys would agree with. But additionally as well, I also want to ask sort of what is it in particular that brought you to this launch event today? Was there any sort of click in particular? Was it sort of just one of the events that happens to be on the calendar? Or what drove you here today?
Well, for me, I think it's a case of, I think it's really important that people work together, and there's that. We've got a very good working relationship across borough. The nature of Finsbury Park, it's mostly Islington, bits of Haringey, bits of Hackney. So it's always useful to have that good sort of working relationship between sort of neighbouring colleagues, and also it's about stealing good ideas. I'm sorry to say that. Sometimes when you go to outside of your patch and you see something that's really good going, I think, I can take that back to where I am and see if there's any sort of local partners you can work with. So for me, it's mainly about working together collaboratively across the borough boundaries, but also I think it's a case of best practice, taking that back to Haringey, seeing what good things happen in Islington, and vice versa. I've always, Councillor Ibrahim has always come to Haringey events. We had something similar as well. We go to our neighbour boroughs in Hackney, for example, as well. So I think that's part of my intention of being here today. But also I think it's a case of I really can't stress it's quite a very unique project. I can't think of any, recording studios where you can just drop in a hat more or less and actually, create something from scratch or be trained up to create something from scratch. I think it's quite exciting. You've got something going on in Islington,
Yeah. And so what brought you here today, Bashir?
Well, like I said, I'm a friend of the centre, I'm a friend of the organisations. It's not my first time being here. And so, when the invitation came, I didn't need much convincing to come along. And similar to what Ibrahim said, is, I realise that what we have is quite unique. And if it's not for us to celebrate the wins, and as I said in my previous answer, there is a lot to be down about. There are a lot of negative things going on in society. We've got rampant racism, Islamophobia, cost of living. We're still not fully out of, COVID is still around. There's so much going on. So we're able to, have these positive and stories come out and positive experiences. Then, I think I'm duty bound to celebrate them, and I will always celebrate the achievements of our communities.
Well, we are certainly very lucky to have you both here, and I've been very thankful for you guys for coming on. Indeed, last second, turns out you didn't have time to prepare, so I am very thankful for you guys coming on. But just sort of with the last few minutes that we have, is there anything that you'd want sort of our listeners, or indeed listeners in post, to sort of take away from you guys today? Any final messages? Can be on anything. Could be just Islington news if you fancy, but.
So the only, I think every time I have a microphone, I always have to have a call to action, and my call to action is always get involved, and getting involved can take so many different guises, and just whether you're a parent and you there are parent governor roles, you can get involved in the management of your local school, and joining a local community group, and where you're able to kind of make new relationships, new friendships, and foster dialogue amongst other communities. And whether it is, yes, indeed, running and for a political office, and whether it's just having your voice heard at the ballot box. There are a number of people, we have millions of people in this country who do not vote and willfully choose not to. And I feel like we know the history of voting. We know the struggles that for everyone to have the right to vote. So if there's anything I could leave to your listeners is get involved, because if you don't do politics, politics will do you.
A very nice sort of snappy quote to end on. And Ibrahim, is there any sort of final message you'd like to give as well?
No, just to echo those words, I think it's active citizenship. I think I really, truly believe that every single person who has the time and the means to do so should pick one thing they care about and give some time to that. And that doesn't have to be something that's very publicly known or a big thing. That's quite close to your heart. That's quite selfless, I think. I think it's really important that everyone does that. Just the other day, I had the park in the wall I represent has a playground that's slightly out of date, and there's a lot of parents have come together to actually demand that it's refurbished, it's renewed, and all the rest of it. The reason why they've done that, they saw a neighbouring scrap of land. It wasn't really a park, really. They've now built into a park. They've got 200 grand to sort of fundraise, sort of new playground, new infrastructure, public realm design projects, all the rest of it. And it was co-produced between them and the council. And I think that's what it takes. You don't have to have power to do something good, but also it does help if you have people in power who can facilitate those conversations. So my call will be to do something. Pick one thing that's selfless, that's not for you, that's for your neighbourhood or for your community, for your street, for your road. Because if more of us did that, hopefully the country will be a lot better place, if you ask me.